or the current weather. Now let's move on to adding research capabilities to this agent. This research capability will allow our assistant to go online to retrieve information and formulate a response. Now, of course, we could simply go to Tools and add something like the SERP API tool, which will allow it to perform a Google search. But I want my research capabilities to be way more advanced than simply calling a single tool. So therefore, I'm going to create a separate agent that's completely responsible for doing research and then passing the results back to our personal assistant. So our personal assistant will kind of act like a supervisor agent that's able to hand tasks over to other agents and then work with their responses. So let's go back to our dashboard. Let's create a new agent. So we'll just create a new workflow. Let's rename this to Research Agent. Again, I'm going to give it my little robot icon. Now for the trigger, let's select when called by another workflow. I do recommend setting mock data at this point in order to test this flow by itself. To do that, we can click on Edit. Then we can actually remove almost all of this. Let's just add back that curly brace and let's remove this comma. Now, when another flow calls this flow, it will pass in a query parameter, and within this, we can pass in something like latest news on Llama 3.3. Let's save this and let's go back to the canvas. Then let's add a new action. Let's go to Advanced AI. Let's select an AI agent. And for the prompt source, let's change this to define below and let's add our query to this text. Let's also add a system message, and for this message, let's enter role. Your role is to research the provided topic using the provided tools. Let's close this pop-up. Let's go back to the canvas. Let's assign a chat model. So again, we'll select OpenAI. We can actually use the GPT-4o mini model since we won't be assigning too many tools to this agent. We also don't have to manage memory as this is a once-off call. Now for the tools, I want to give this agent access to a few tools actually. First is the Wikipedia tool, and we don't have to set anything on this tool, it will just work. Let's add another tool, and this time I'm going to add Hacker News, and for the resource, let's change this from a single article to all, which will allow us to perform a search query on Hacker News. So we can leave the operation on get many, and let's specify a limit like the last 5 articles. And under additional fields, let's add keywords. And from the keywords, we want to extract the most relevant keywords from the query that this agent received. Now this query could be anything. It really depends on what the supervisor decides to pass into this flow, which might not be ideal, and we do not want to pass in paragraphs of information to perform a search query. Instead, we want our agent to intelligently extract the keywords from whatever the sentence is to perform a search on Hacker News. And that brings us to a super useful feature in N8N. Let's go to Expression, and within Expression, let's enter our double curly braces. Now we can select From AI. We can use From AI to tell our agent what information to extract from the prompt and also how to extract that information. So for instance, in quotes, we can tell it what to extract. So I'll simply enter keywords. But if you feel like this is not descriptive enough, you can add another property. And in here, you can describe how the agent should identify this information from the prompt. For instance, the keywords that can be used to perform a query on Hacker News. Now let's go back to the canvas and let's add one more tool, and specifically the SERP API tool, which will allow our agent to perform a Google search. Under credentials, let's click on create new credential, and for the API key, go to serpapi.com and sign into your account. Then simply copy your private key and add it to N8N. Let's click on save and let's close this pop-up. And that is actually all we have to do. Let's test this workflow, and if we have a look at the response, and in the output we do see our research results. Let's save this flow, then let's go back to our personal assistant, and we can now call another workflow as a tool by going to Tools. Let's select Call N8N Workflow Tool. Let's give it a name like Research Agent. Let's also rename this tool, and in the description we can tell the agent what this tool is about. Use this tool in order to perform research on any given topic. We'll leave the source as database, And under Workflow, we can select our research agent. Now let's go back to the canvas. And as I mentioned earlier, I highly recommend adding any tools to the system prompt of our supervisor agent. So here I'll add the name of the tool, which we called research agent, and I'll enter something like, use this tool to perform research on any given topic, pass a detailed query to this tool in order to perform the best possible research. Let's save this and let's run test workflow. Now let's ask Max something like, what is the latest news on Llama 3.3? And we can see that the research agent is being triggered, and now OpenAI is formulating a response, and in Telegram we can see our response, which contains all of our research results. Great.